The wedding ring exchange ceremony. My fiancé suddenly suggested that I compete with her in a bamboo bird catching contest. Whoever wins, she will marry. No surprises here. I lost. I had spent half a year preparing for the wedding. It turned into her and He Qiang's wedding. My father was so angry that he had a heart attack on the spot. In my most hopeless and helpless moment, Qingmei Bai Ningbing boldly declared her love. She wanted to marry me. She even personally took my father to the hospital for emergency treatment. But on the way, she was involved in a car accident. In the end, she could not be saved. I mourned for my father for 3 years. Bai Ningbing managed the company for me. Until 3 years later, I accidentally unlocked her phone. I saw a voice message between her and her best friend. Ningbing, the truth cannot be hidden forever. You deliberately caused the car accident and almost lost your life. For He Qiang, you were willing to sacrifice your own happiness for him. Is it worth it? What if one day Feng Yuan finds out the truth? What will you do? As long as he is happy, I can give up everything, even my own life. As for Feng Yuan, the debt I owe him can only be repaid in the next life. It's fair. The pain is unbearable. I finally realized that from the beginning to the end, she only loved He Qiang. I had foolishly believed I could find happiness. In the end, it was just a beautiful dream carefully woven by someone else. The dream shattered. It was time to leave. On the way to deliver the phone to Bai Ningbing, I accidentally entered a string of numbers. It unlocked the phone. The string of numbers was He Qiang's birthday. After reading her conversation with her best friend, my hands and feet went cold. I found myself at the entrance of her group's building, not even realizing it. As soon as I entered the building, everyone's gaze was drawn to me. Some were envious, some were jealous. Bai Ningbing was known as the Ice Queen of this city. Many white X-Men pursued her, but she ignored them all. She only chose me, who was as insignificant as dust among the countless shining stars. At first, I thought I was favored by heaven, but upon hearing those voice messages, I woke up from the dream. Her assistant saw me. He was about to notify her, but I stopped him. Go ahead with your work. I'm here to deliver the phone to her. The assistant kindly reminded me, Miss Shen is also here. I immediately understood. Shen Yachu is Bai Ningbing's best friend. The voice message on the phone was the one she had sent 2 days ago. I was going to knock and enter, but I heard Shen Yachu raise her voice, clearly very excited. Ningbing, stop deceiving yourself. Is it worth it to do all this for that man? He is deeply involved with and there's Liu no Ryan. Place for you in his heart. Bai Ningbing's tone carried a trace of exhaustion. I don't care. Since the day I've given everything. As long as he is happy, everything I've done is worth it. Shen Yachu grew anxious. But is this fair to Feng Yuan? He could have been a carefree young master. But because of your delay, Uncle Feng passed away in the end, unable to be treated. He became a pitiful homeless person. Bai Ningbing fell silent for a few seconds, glancing at the photo frame on the desk. It was a photo of me and her taken after we got married. Then she softly spoke. Doesn't he still have me? Isn't that enough? I do owe him, but I am doing my best to make it right. Back then, both the Feng family and the He family were competing for the same major project, a project crucial to the survival of the He family. If I hadn't done this, the He family would have gone bankrupt. Once Chairman Feng passed away, the Feng family would no longer be able to compete for the project, and He Qiang would naturally get what he wanted. Bai Ningbing's voice carried a touch of sadness. Shen Yachu wanted to say something else, but Bai Ningbing waved her hand. You came all the way here just to say this to me? Feng Yuan will bring me the phone later, and if he sees you, he'll become suspicious. You should go back now. Shen Yachu could only sigh helplessly. When she opened the door to leave the office, she came face to face with me. In that moment, I saw the shock on her face. Feng Yuan, what are you doing here? I've been here for a while. I hid the sadness in my eyes, forcing a casual smile. I just arrived, but you were coming out just as I got here. So, what were you two talking about? I pretended not to understand. What were you talking about? Nothing much. Shen Yucha hurriedly fled. When her eyes met Bai Ningbing's, she lowered her head in guilt. How did you get here so quickly? I nodded. You said there were important files in the phone, and I thought it must be something urgent. Bai Ningbing got up from her seat and walked over to me. Her soft hands wrapped around my neck. You go find somewhere to sit. I'll come to you once I'm done. By the way, don't you like coffee? Drink this cup of mine. She picked up the coffee and brought it to me. I took it from her. I forced a faint smile. All right, I'll wait for you in the lounge outside. I closed the door. A flash of light appeared before my eyes. My steps quickened. I felt like the world was spinning around me. A few short minutes inside felt like I had endured a century of suffering. I was afraid I might not be able to stop myself from questioning. Bai Ningbing was so heartless toward me. I once thought my father's death was just an accident, but I never expected it was actually part of her long-planned scheme to fulfill He Qiang. Back then, Liu Ryan's betrayal left me lonely and helpless. Bai Ningbing's arrival made me think she was the lifeline I could grab onto as I was about to drown. Now, looking back, I realize how naive I was back then. Her love for me, a love so intense it made others jealous. But only I knew that it was all just her way of compensating me for what she owed. The bitterness of the coffee spread across my taste buds, but compared to the bitterness in my heart, it was nothing. I walked toward the lounge. Passing by a small corner, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. I intended to pass by, but a huge photo wall on the wall caught my attention. Taking advantage of no one noticing, I walked straight in. A dazzling array of objects stung my eyes. The whole wall was covered with countless photos. In every photo, He Qiang appeared, his image studying hard, his smiling face, him active on the sports field, and him striving to win in the swimming pool. On the other wall, there were medals and trophies, all from He Qiang's university swimming competitions. But I couldn't understand why they were in this room. On an exhibition table, neatly arranged, were donation receipts. These were the donation slips for charity events Bai Ningbing had organized in He Qiang's name. In the center, there were a dozen peace charms, each one marked with a year. She did all of this, only to accumulate blessings for He Qiang. I finally remembered. Every year at a fixed time, Bai Ningbing would disappear for a few days. Now I understand. She was going to the temple to pray for He Qiang's safety. In all these years of marriage, she had never asked for a peace charm for me. But for He Qiang, she did it every year without fail. Suddenly, my heart felt like it was being tightly squeezed, and even my breathing became rapid. But what truly caught my attention was a small, inconspicuous corner, where a notebook was casually placed. I flipped it open, and a series of familiar characters appeared. The handwriting was neat and elegant, and it recorded the exact times of JQ, even to the second. It documented every meeting between Ningbing and He Qiang, the exact times they held hands, the exact times they kissed, the exact times they were heartbroken. Especially when He Qiang was going to get married. She drank for 7 days and nights. What He Qiang liked to eat, what He Qiang liked to do, all of it was laid out in detail. Each stroke, each line, hid her subtle love for him. I struggled to flip to the last page, but there was no mention of my name, not even a single word. The diary in my hands suddenly felt incredibly heavy. After taking a photo, I walked out of the room, leaning against the wall and gasping for air. My blurry vision slowly cleared. I picked up my phone and dialed an international call. Sis, I've calculated the cost to go abroad. Didn't Dad always say he wanted to travel around the world? I want to help him fulfill that wish. My sister, far abroad, heard the sorrow in my voice. She was silent for a moment. Brother, Did you argue with Ningbing? She's always been so good to you. You should accommodate her more. I didn't explain much. My sister sighed. Alright, whatever decision I will support you. After Dad passed, the Fang family's business plummeted. Just recently, Ningbing transferred the entire Fang family's assets to me. My sister has decided to move the assets abroad. When you return, these things will be handed back to you. However, the asset settlement will take 3 more days. After 3 days, I'll pick you up at the airport. I nodded and agreed. Alright, I'll buy a ticket for 3 days from now. I hung up the phone. Then a sound of high heels tapping on the floor came from behind me. Bai Ningbing wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. Her chin rested on my shoulder. She smiled warmly. Plane ticket? Why are you buying a plane ticket? I casually came up with an excuse to brush it off. My sister just called me, and she said she's buying a plane ticket to visit me, her brother. Bai Ningbing was delighted to hear this. That's great! I haven't seen your sister in a long time. It's a perfect chance to catch up. She came closer to me. She placed one of my hands on her lower abdomen and rubbed it gently. Husband, you've always wanted a child, right? Tonight, let's skip the protection. I was taken aback for a moment. In our years of marriage, I had suggested having a child at least 99 times. But she always refused, citing concerns about her figure. Even when it came to our intimate life. -1. This time, she unexpectedly took the initiative and made the request. Before I could think too much, she pulled me along into the restaurant under the envious gazes of a crowd. I'm hungry. Let's eat here. I didn't refuse and sat down across from her. Bai Ningbing never showed me the menu. It wasn't until the dishes were served that she noticed me frowning and asked with concern, "What's wrong? Is the food not to your liking?" I looked at a dish of shrimp soup, and a cold chill ran through me. I'm allergic to seafood. I can't eat anything related to seafood. There was once, due to her oversight, that shrimp was added to the soup. After I ate it, I had to be rushed to the emergency room, nearly dying. But I never expected. She had forgotten completely. He Qiang was also allergic to seafood. Yet she remembered it clearly, perhaps in her mind. I was never someone she needed to care about. My life and death were of no concern to her. I ate a few bites casually. Bai Ningbing said the company was busy and told me to keep eating. She was eager to leave. Once she was gone, I immediately called the legal department of the Fang family. Head lawyer, please help me draft a divorce agreement. Yes, I'll be leaving with nothing. Also, please investigate what happened between the Fang and on the day of my father's accident 3 years ago. The fake love between us. It's time for it to end. The next day, a piece of news flooded my phone. I clicked on it. I found out there was a charity gala in the city that night. The gala itself wasn't particularly special, but what drew attention was a rare international exhibit. It was a diamond, the world's most precious diamond, called Eternal Love. The diamond was of significant value, but it couldn't compare to the meaning of its name. I thought this had nothing to do with me. But later that evening, I received a call from Ningbing. Husband, tonight, dress nicely. Your wife is taking you to the charity gala. Wait for me, I'll come to pick you up. An hour later, Bai Ningbing sent a driver to pick me up. It wasn't until I arrived at the charity event that I realized she had already arrived. She wore a deep V-neck long gown, radiating beauty and charm, which attracted admiring glances from many men. Just as I was about to approach, I noticed she was talking to someone. That person was none other than He Qiang. Long time no see. You're still as beautiful as ever. He Qiang's compliment made her face show a rare hint of bashfulness. And you? How have you been since you got married? He Qiang's tone was somewhat ambiguous. He merely glanced at her, his eyes hinting at something unspoken. Quite well. Liu Ryan is pregnant. We're very happy. Bai Ningbing forced a smile, but there was a subtle sadness in her eyes, which I caught from a distance. I tightened my grip on the HJ cup in my hand, a feeling of bitterness rising within me. At that moment, Others around us began to comment, noticing the conversation between Bai Ningbing and He Qiang. That handsome man! Isn't he Mr. XX? What a perfect couple! Who could deny it? She's gentle and graceful, and he's talented and handsome. They really are a perfect match. I've never seen a couple so well-suited. I've heard that Mr. XXX is very devoted to his wife. Seeing it today, it truly lives up to the rumors. Hearing the gossip, Bai Ningbing felt a surge of pride in her heart, but the next moment, she froze when she saw me from afar. I turned and walked away. The moment I left, Bai Ningbing hurriedly chased after me. Fang Yuan, wait a moment! She lifted her long skirt, and, under the surprised gazes of many, ran ahead of me. With a nervous expression, she tried to explain. Fang Yuan, why did you leave as soon as you saw me? Is it because I was talking to another man? I won't do it again, okay? You know that. Mr. He is an important client of our company. We were just making polite conversation. Please don't misunderstand. Looking at her clarification, I couldn't help but laugh silently. If I hadn't seen what was inside that mysterious room, maybe I would have been fooled by her convincing performance. Bai Ningbing, oh Bai Ningbing. Love can be open and passionate. So why hide it so painfully? You like him. I can let you have him. During my silence, He Qiang approached me. He looked at me with a half-smile. Fang Yuan, in front of everyone. How could you bear to let such a beautiful and delicate woman? How could a girl act so out of character chasing after you? Shame on you. You're still a man. A man should be more magnanimous. Stop being so petty. His sarcastic tone made the people around us laugh. Others looked at me as though I were a clown. His usual elegance only made me look more pathetic. Bai Ningbing just quietly stood there, not even trying to help me out. In that moment, I suddenly felt relieved. I smiled faintly. How is it? Mr. He took my former fiancée, and now he set his sights on my current wife. As soon as I said that, He Qiang's face changed dramatically. Noticing the people around us whispering, he shot me a glare and stormed off angrily. Bai Ningbing panicked, blurted out, Fang Yuan, how could you speak so badly of Mr. He? Go after him and apologize. I glanced at her coldly. Bai Ningbing froze for a moment, then realized her mistake. Fang Yuan, please don't misunderstand. I'm doing this for your own good. The He family is not what it used to be. If you offend him, things will be difficult for you in the future. I couldn't care less. He was the one who disrupted my wedding, stole my fiancée, and from that moment, I have been at odds with him. Bai Ningbing still wanted to say something, but I turned and left. I walked to a quiet corner and stayed there alone. She watched my back, wanting to say something, but ultimately, she didn't come after me. Through the crowd, I saw her in the distance, already forgetting what had just happened, laughing and talking with He Qiang. These 3 years, under Bai Ningbing's management of the Fang family business, the company hadn't grown, but instead had steadily declined. Meanwhile, He Qiang's company, which had been on the verge of collapse, had rebounded and thrived. Privately, they had secured several collaborations with the Bai family. The current Fang family was no longer the giant that once nearly bankrupted He Qiang's family. Perhaps this is what Bai Ningbing wanted to see all along. In this way, He Qiang transformed from a fallen rich kid into a spirited young master. As I was lost in my thoughts, the lively chatter around me grew louder. The auction finally began. Listening to the rising bids, I drank my HJ in silence until I heard cheers from the crowd. The diamond had been sold. It went for 100 million. Who could spend so much? That's the exclusive, limited edition diamond from XXXXX. I heard it's from the He family. Could it be? I clearly saw that the bid was called by someone from the XXXX group. Hearing this, I paused for a moment. I gave a self-mocking smile. Bai Ningbing was indeed pulling out all the stops to please He Qiang. As expected, she was making a big splash. This charity gala had already lost all meaning for me. After half an hour, I was about to leave. Just then, someone called my name. Mr. Fang, 30 is looking for you. By the swimming pool. I hesitated, feeling suspicious, and headed toward the pool. But I didn't see Bai Ningbing. Instead, I saw He Qiang, looking at me with a playful expression. Loser! Liu Ryan left you and followed me. Even your wife, Bai Ningbing, is desperately trying to please me. Did you see this diamond? Bai Ningbing gave it to me. 100 million. And what about you? What did she give you? He shook the sparkling diamond in his hand, seemingly showing off. I thought for a moment, then shook my head. Indeed, over the years, most of the things Bai Ningbing gave me were meaningless gifts. It felt like giving me presents was just a task to be completed. How sad! I didn't want to engage with him. I was about to leave when I saw He Qiang's sly smile, and a bad feeling rose in my chest. He Qiang's gaze passed over my shoulder, and he noticed a group of people rushing over. The next second, he shouted loudly, Fang Yuan, you can't steal my diamond. Ah! He reached out and pulled me into the pool with him. He Qiang, the moment I fell into the water, I saw the terrified look on Bai Ningbing's face as she called out for He Qiang. I've been a terrible swimmer since I was a child, unable to swim at all. I struggled on the surface of the water, trying to reach out to Bai Ningbing for help. She glanced at me urgently. I thought she would have someone rescue me first. But then I clearly heard her shout, Save He Qiang first. Quick! In that instant, I suddenly had the urge to give up on surviving. The cold water rushed into my mouth and nose, and I couldn't breathe. My vision began to blur. As my consciousness began to fade, in the last moment, I sadly thought, He Qiang is a swimming champion, and I can't swim at all. Didn't Bai Ningbing know this? She knew very well, but she didn't want to take the risk, even if there was only a 0.0001% chance of He Qiang drowning. When I woke up again, it was the next day. I found myself in my bedroom at home, and there was no one around. I took a deep breath. A sharp pain pierced through my chest. I shouted for a long time, but no one responded. I picked up my phone and saw numerous messages from Bai Ningbing. Husband, the doctor says you only had a mild case of drowning, and there's no serious issue. Please rest well, and when you're recovered, I'll take you out for a walk, alright? She didn't mention a word about why she saved He Qiang first. Just as I was about to put my phone down, a news alert popped up. A paparazzi had snapped a picture of Bai Ningbing meeting He Qiang at a hotel. She was changing his wet clothes, making him ginger tea, and using her body to warm him up. Everything she did made her seem more like a devoted wife than Liu Ryan. I ignored it. I struggled to get out of bed. During the pain in my chest, I rummaged through drawers and cupboards, throwing all the photos I had with Bai Ningbing over the years into a metal bin. I cleared out the entire album on my phone. Then, I had the cleaning service come to pack up my things. In the meantime, I received the divorce agreement from my lawyer. I printed it out and signed it. I placed it on the desk. He also sent me some documents. The documents showed that at the time, the He family and the Fang family were competing for a major project. I printed those documents as well. I used my connections to obtain footage from the traffic police department, covering every corner of the area where Bai Ningbing's car accident had occurred 3 years ago. One then took the several hundred photos I had previously taken of the small room and stored them along with the SP files on a USB drive, which I kept alongside the divorce agreement. In addition, I also had the surveillance footage from near the swimming pool at the charity gala pulled up, planning to reveal the truth of that night to the public. After doing all of this, I dragged my luggage out and headed for the airport. On the way, Bai Ningbing suddenly sent me a message. Husband, have you seen the rumors online? Please don't believe them. They're just paparazzi's boring gossip. They're taking things out of context and distorting the facts. I went to take care of He Qiang because everyone thinks you pushed him into the swimming pool. I was trying to plead with He Qiang on your behalf. Otherwise, you'd be accused of attempted murder. When I saw the message, I felt no emotion. I quickly blocked both Bai Ningbing and He Qiang at the Bai family headquarters. Bai Ningbing was staring at her phone when the secretary entered. She asked, "Has Mr. Fang called the company?" The secretary shook his head. "Number. Sir knows you're busy. In the past, every day before noon, I would call the front desk. I would remind you to eat and rest on time. But today, it seems..." Bai Ningbing frowned. It seemed like she also sensed that something was off today. Logically, he should have already gone to bed by now. Forget it. He's not a child anymore. Let him be. How's the PR work going? Make sure it doesn't affect He Qiang. He's currently on the list of top 10 youth candidates. This is an important honor for him. The secretary hesitated, but wanted to speak. He couldn't help but speak up. "Chairman, is this fair to the sir? If he finds out later, how heartbroken will he be?" Bai Ningbing tightly clenched her hands, feeling deeply sorrowful. This was the last thing she did for He Qiang. Once he receives the top 10 youth honor, I'll step down. I'll focus solely on being a good wife and mother to Fang Yuan. By the way, make arrangements. Transfer the 50% stake in Zishai Group that I own, all of it to Fang Yuan. The secretary nodded. Just as they were about to leave, suddenly the office door was pushed open with force. "Chairman, the logistics department just received a text message. It says..." Bai Ningbing saw the urgency in the person's expression. Her heart sank suddenly. "What's going on? Speak quickly." The sir bought a plane ticket and boarded the plane to leave. Bai Ningbing could no longer sit still. She jumped up suddenly. "What did you say?" "Fang Yuan boarded the plane? Are you sure he's not going to pick someone up?" She remembered a few days ago, Fang Yuan mentioned the plane ticket matter on the phone. The logistics department manager hurriedly confirmed, then handed the phone to Bai Ningbing. "Chairman, take a look. This is the order information for the plane ticket the sir purchased. His phone number is tied to the company's booking channel. Any ticket purchase or boarding would trigger a reminder." Bai Ningbing was still in a daze. She couldn't understand. Why would Fang Yuan leave without telling her? She tried calling several times, but all she heard was the cold, busy tone. She knew Fang Yuan had blocked her. In the midst of her panic, He Qiang walked into the office without knocking. "What's going on with you? You all look so worried." The secretary knew Bai Ningbing liked He Qiang, so she didn't hide anything. "Mr. He, our sir, bought a plane ticket and went abroad." He Qiang's eyes flashed with a glimmer of something unusual. "Fang Yuan, that guy. I've known him since college. He's always been this unreliable. It's been over 10 years. And he's still such a failure. Always making people worrying. Forget about him. It's just the same old trick. When he was dating Liu Ruyan, he did the same thing. In a few days, he'll come back obediently." Hearing him trash talk Fang Yuan without any restraint, the others in the room frowned. Bai Ningbing felt even more troubled. "All right. The most urgent thing is to find him. I'll go back home." She still didn't believe that Fang Yuan would go abroad alone. Because in her memory, Fang Yuan had never been away from her for more than 24 hours. Moreover, Fang Yuan's father's ashes were still in the country. He Qiang quickly volunteered. "Let me take you there." Bai Ningbing didn't think too much about it. She was feeling awful at the moment, and wasn't in the mood to drive, so she didn't refuse. She had planned to sit in the back, but seeing He Qiang open the front passenger door for her, she felt too embarrassed to decline. Once in the car, her heart was racing. A sense of gain and loss clouded her thoughts, and it wouldn't go away. She had never felt so scared like this before. It felt as if she was about to lose something. He Qiang was driving slowly, He glanced at Bai Ningbing in the passenger seat, only to notice that today, she seemed even more captivating, especially when he saw her legs. A pair of long, slender legs in black SW. Serious yet slightly seductive, making his throat tighten. One of his hands instinctively reached over. But Bai Ningbing was lost in thought, not noticing at all. It wasn't until He Qiang's hand grew more daring that she snapped back to reality. "Don't touch me." He Qiang didn't stop there. Instead, he chuckled warmly. "Ningbing, there's no one else in this car." Bai Ningbing was in no mood for this. She pushed his hand away. "You're a married man. Please show some respect." Seeing Bai Ningbing's anger, He Qiang chuckled playfully. When the car arrived downstairs, Bai Ningbing rushed to go back home. He Qiang followed closely behind, chattering nonstop. "Ningbing, you don't need to be so anxious. That waste of a man, you know him well. The more you worrying about him, the more he'll act spoiled and arrogant. My suggestion is, let him make his own mess. Once he's tired of it, he'll naturally come back." He thought this sentence would get a nod of agreement from Bai Ningbing, but she only glared at him coldly. "He Qiang, I warn you, Fang Yuan is my husband. If you continue to insult him like this, don't blame me for not being polite." He Qiang wanted to say something, but Bai Ningbing suddenly stopped in her tracks. "You go back first. I'll contact you later." He Qiang felt somewhat reluctant, but Bai Ningbing's cold aura was terrifying. He had no choice but to leave. Watching his retreating figure, Bai Ningbing's eyes were filled with disappointment and regret. She finally understood, but she was too anxious to find Fang Yuan, and had no time to think about it. When she got to the door, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. She felt like a timid bride entering her wedding chamber. She had never felt this way before. For the first time, going home felt like something to look forward to. She even wondered, when I see Fang Yuan later, what should I do? Give him a kiss? Or a hug? Or maybe fulfill the promise I made to him earlier? To give him children? At this thought, her face flushed with heat. She couldn't bring herself to believe that Fang Yuan would leave her. She opened the door and gently called out a few times, "Husband, where are you?" But when she opened the door and stepped inside, she was completely stunned. The house was as newly built one, although the layout and decorations hadn't changed. Something felt off, but she couldn't pinpoint what. It was cold. A very unfamiliar feeling. It wasn't until she noticed that this house had no trace of Fang Yuan's presence. The flowers he planted, the teacups he loved, his books. It was as if they had all vanished overnight. Even the wedding photo on the wall had been taken down. It was as though nothing had ever hung there. Bai Ningbing completely lost her composure. She didn't even bother taking off her high heels before rushing into the house, searching everywhere. "Husband, stop hiding. I don't like playing hide-and-seek." Bai Ningbing searched through the room, even carefully checking drawers and places where someone could hide. But she didn't see a trace of Fang Yuan. One of her high heels broke. She twisted her ankle, but she didn't care about the pain in her foot. She was still unwilling to give up and searched again, until she noticed that Fang Yuan's suitcase was gone. She finally realized he had really left. "Husband, where are you?" She called him over a dozen times, but none of the calls went through. In her desperate panic, she called the secretary. She ordered everyone to search place Fang Yuan might have been. Find him anywhere you can. After searching tirelessly, Bai Ningbing collapsed onto the sofa. That's when she noticed something on the table. A brown paper bag, a stack of documents, and a USB drive. Her hands trembled as she picked up the USB drive. She found a computer and plugged it in. After seeing its contents, she covered her face and cried, "Husband, so you had already discovered the things in that room?" So all this time, you've been in pain inside, but you forced yourself to act like everything was fine in front of me. Tears streamed down her face as she opened the file. She saw the accident scene from the year before. Her heart tightened. It was then that she realized that the truth about her indirect involvement in Fang Yuan's father's death had already been exposed. Holding the thick stack of documents, Bai Ningbing was filled with deep regret until she opened the brown paper bag and saw the words divorce agreement. She could no longer contain her regret. She let out a choking sob. "Husband, I'm so sorry." The next day, a video went viral online. In the video, He Qiang was seen mocking Fang Yuan. The camera captured everything from start to finish, and he performed a self-directed, self-melodrama. It was all in the video. The comments section was full of scolding. "How despicable. This guy is acting like he's in a palace drama. I feel so bad for that guy Fang Yuan. Not only was he wrongfully accused, but that bastard dragged him into it. Almost drowned him. The most despicable one is that stupid woman. Clearly, it was He Qiang's green tea act that provoked him. But she only cared about saving XS. She let her husband struggle in the water." Outraged netizens took to the internet, condemning the He and Bai families. As a result, the family's stock prices plummeted instantly. Even many of their industries were affected. To quell the public's anger, the upper management had no choice but to make a decision. They canceled all cooperation with the He family. They began investigating all non-compliant contracts. Even Bai Ningbing, the chairman, was temporarily dismissed. But Bai Ningbing had already lost the will to manage. She found her best friend, Shen Yechu, to seek a solution. "Yechu, what should I do? Fang Yuan really left me. I should have listened to you back then. Now I regret it so much." She cried uncontrollably, her eyes red from all the weeping. Shen Yechu sighed helplessly. At this point, crying won't help. The most urgent thing now is to think about how to get Fang Yuan back. You caused XXX's death. Even if he doesn't pursue legal action against you, trying to get him to come back, I don't think that's possible. Bai Ningbing cried as she grabbed Shen Yechu's sleeve. "No matter what it costs, I'm willing. As long as he can come back, I'm willing to go to prison. Yechu, after this night, I thought it through clearly. I always thought I deeply loved He Qiang, but until Fang Yuan left, I only realized the person I love is actually him, not He Qiang. I was just too confused to see that." Shen Yechu felt a bit sorry for her. "Actually, I tried to warn you back then because I saw this, but you didn't listen." Bai Ningbing wanted to say something, but then they heard someone arguing outside. "Mr. He, you really can't go in. Our CEO is in a meeting." He Qiang pushed the secretary, blocking his way hard. "Get lost. I need to see Ningbing today. I need to ask her. Why did she cancel the cooperation with the He family? Why did she claim the contract between the He family and ours was non-compliant? And demand penalties?" The secretary retorted sarcastically. "Mr. He, if it weren't for the CEO's private instructions, do you think your broken company, the He family, has the qualifications to cooperate with the Bai family?" Mr. Bai was willing to even give up profit just to take care of your He family's business. But you better not bite the hand that feeds you. He Qiang's face darkened. Ignoring the secretary, he rushed into the office. "Ningbing, so you're here. Perfect. Quickly explain this to me. What is going on?" Bai Ningbing looked at He Qiang, who seemed so frantic, and the disappointment in her heart turned into despair. Once, she had thought He Qiang was a graceful, calm and collected, excellent man. But now she finally saw his true face. She suddenly remembered Fang Yuan. He had suffered the betrayal of his fiancée. His father passed away, but he still didn't give up. He didn't fall into despair. He even cared for her, constantly reminding her to eat on time and maintain a regular routine. Back then, how did she not see his goodness? She really regretted it now. "Speak." He Qiang's shout pulled Bai Ningbing back to reality. But before she could explain, he got a slap across his face. He Qiang was frozen in place. His expression was one of disbelief. In his memory, Bai Ningbing was gentle and graceful. Her words always soft and sweet. But today, she seemed like a completely different person. Bai Ningbing's eyes were cold with fury. He Qiang, I've been more than patient with you. If you keep pestering me, don't blame me for being rude. He Qiang didn't want to pretend anymore. He pointed outside and sneered. A long time ago, that room was full of things about me. I know you've been secretly in love with me. So when someone offered a high price to buy my trophy, I didn't refuse. I also know that every year you secretly prayed for a safety amulet for me, fearing Liu Ruyan would find out. So you kept it to yourself. You clearly love me, but now you've become so heartless. When he mentioned that mysterious room, Bai Ningbing felt like a thorn had pierced her heart. It was because of that room that Fang Yuan left. She responded firmly to He Qiang. Yes, I did like you once, but now I don't like you anymore. I only love one person, and that's my husband, Fang Yuan. He Qiang didn't believe it at all. Impossible. That waste of a man? How could you like him? Bai Ningbing had wanted to remain dignified, but He Qiang's repeated insults toward Fang Yuan were more than she could bear. Security, get him out of here. If he dares to pester me again, I'll call the police. Soon, the security personnel escorted the shouting He Qiang out. Shen Yachu was silent for a long time before speaking. Ningbing! There's one other person who might know Fang Yuan's whereabouts. His sister. Bai Ningbing suddenly realized, why didn't I think of that? I'll call his sister right now. After calling his sister, Bai Ningbing hurriedly asked about Fang Yuan's whereabouts. But the sister's reply left her utterly hopeless. Although I don't know what happened between you, when my brother came over, he didn't have a smile on his face. It's too late to look for him now. Early this morning, he bought a plane ticket from me, taking my father's ashes for a world tour. As for where he's going, I don't know. After hanging up the phone, Bai Ningbing collapsed into Shen Yachu's arms, crying uncontrollably. When Bai Ningbing offered a huge reward to find me, I was holding my father's ashes, sitting in a hot air balloon, looking down on foreign landscapes. My father loved watching penguins, and halfway through, I joined an expedition team to the Arctic. This journey, although it was difficult, it was very fulfilling. I didn't have much time to be negative. Every day, I longed for a different life, a different view. In each journey, I gradually found the meaning of life. Bai Ningbing's figure had long disappeared from my heart. Over the course of the year, I traveled everywhere. It was the happiest time I've had in many years. When I returned to my sister's house, she saw me as if I had been reborn. She couldn't help but cry. Brother, your travels make you look like a monk on a pilgrimage. You've lost so much weight. I smiled and responded to her. Life is a journey of self-cultivation. The meaning of travel is to redeem yourself. And also, I fulfilled my father's dream. After resting for a few days, my sister suddenly approached me. Dad always told us that fallen leaves return to their roots. When he passed away, he wanted his ashes to be placed beside the XXX grave. Find some time to return and settle his ashes. Also, I've arranged a blind date for you. The girl is quite nice. When you return to the country, if you're interested, you should meet her. She picked you up from the airport. I gladly agreed. Not long after, I returned to the country. I didn't alert anyone, but the moment I got off the plane, I was suddenly stopped by a familiar figure. When she saw me, she froze for a moment. Fang Yuan, is it really you? The person blocking my way was none other than Bai Ningbing. The difference was, before we parted, she was stunning, unyielding. But now, when we met again, she looked as if she had aged 10 years. Her skin had loosened, dark circles under her eyes. Her once pale face was now covered in dark spots. Even though she applied powder intentionally, she couldn't hide the weariness and exhaustion on her face. I didn't know how she knew I was back, but I still smiled faintly. So it's 30. It's been a while, hasn't it? My tone was relaxed, my expression cold. This made Bai Ningbing freeze. It seemed like everything was different from what she had imagined. She thought that when we reunited after a long time, I would surely be overjoyed and embrace her. Fang Yuan, you're still angry with me, aren't you? Can I say sorry to you? You can vent all your anger on me. You can scold me if you want. I'll obediently take it. But I shook my head. Why bother? There's no love between us. So how can there be hate? XXX. You're busy with important matters. I won't keep you any longer. Besides, I have something to do. I'll excuse myself. Just as Bai Ningbing was catching up, suddenly someone called my name. Fang Yuan, brother. I'm here. Seeing who it was, I was quite surprised. How is it you, Su Qingsu? Su Qingsu is the daughter of my father's secretary. Back then, my father always thought we were a good match. But I was with Liu Ruyan at that time, so I rejected the marriage proposal. Su Qingsu was very close, linking her arm with mine, tilting her head to look at me. It's not me. My sister asked me to pick you up, seeing us so close. Bai Ningbing's eyes filled with jealousy. Fang Yuan, who is she? I directly told her. This is my girlfriend. Su Qingsu. Bai Ningbing's pupils widened, her face full of disbelief. Impossible. I'm your wife. How can you be with another woman? Su Qingsu and I were very in sync. She looked at me, her eyes understanding my intent. She tightened her grip on my arm, looking at Bai Ningbing like a declaration of ownership. So you're the woman who hurt my brother, Fang Yuan. How dare you speak? Your actions. Everyone knows them. Don't you have any shame? Bai Ningbing didn't care about her at all. She grabbed my hand directly. Husband, did you deliberately bring her to upset me? I forcefully pulled my hand away from hers. With a very firm tone, I responded. Stop deluding yourself. We're divorced. Between us, it's all in the past. Enough. I still need to go watch a movie with my girlfriend. Don't get in our way. I got into Su King's car. Bai Ningbing, unwilling to give up, kept pounding on the car window. Husband, I know you still love me. You're doing this just to upset me. I'm not angry. Please come back, okay? I'll make you lots of delicious food. I'll have many children for you. Please come home with me, okay? Husband, open the door. Let me say a few words, please. Her pleading gradually turned into crying, but my car gradually sped up, leaving her behind. In the rearview mirror, I saw Bai Ningbing's footsteps faltering as she fell to the ground. It was a pitiful sight. She crawled, chasing the car, crying in agony. Seeing this, I remained calm. Su Qingsu, while driving, looked at me through the rearview mirror. She asked curiously, Fang Yuan, brother, you just said I'm your girlfriend. Is that true? I smiled slightly. Of course it's true. Do you want to? I do. After staying in the country for half a year, during that time, Bai Ningbing tried every possible way to find me, but I didn't give her a chance at all. Eventually, she finally gave up. From the time I left the country and returned a year and a half later, because of the online bullying incident, the He family became weak once again. He Qiang, burdened by a PG debt, went into hiding, and the Bai family wasn't much better. Competitors seized the opportunity to pressure them. The Bai family is now on shaky ground. Su Qingsu and I had reached the point of discussing marriage. We were planning to get married in the country and then settle abroad after the wedding. On the wedding day, it was a very joyful occasion. Many friends and family members attended. But when it came time to exchange rings, a small incident occurred. The fire broke out at the wedding venue's main door. Thankfully, the fire truck and ambulance arrived quickly, and the situation was calmed down instantly. So I didn't pay much attention to it. Until a week after the wedding, Shen Yechu came to see me, Feng Yuan, about Uncle Feng's matter. I'm really sorry. I also apologize on behalf of Ningbing for her foolish actions. This phone is Ningbing's belongings. Inside, there's a video message she wanted to send to you. Hearing the words belongings, my hand holding the coffee cup involuntarily trembled. After Shen Yechu left, I unlocked Bai Ningbing's phone. This time, the password wasn't He Qiang's birthday. It was the date of her marriage with Bai Zi. Feng Yuan, when you see this video, I might already be gone. I regret it. I regret that I realized I loved you too late. When I heard you were getting married, I felt heartbroken, but also happy for you. I heard that He Qiang and Liu Ruyan wanted to take revenge on you. They planned to get back at you on your wedding day, so I decided to end it all with them. As atonement, in the video, He Qiang and Liu Ruyan appeared at the wedding with a barrel of gasoline. Bai Ningbing rushed up, kicked over the gasoline barrel, and set it on fire. He Qiang and Liu Ruyan screamed in the flames, but Bai Ningbing calmly looked at the camera. I put the phone away and walked out of the cafe. Passing by a river, I threw the phone into the river, watching the shimmering water on the surface. I looked up at the blue sky,